year at Strauss Middle School as associate principal. Good evening, my name is Erica Cedillo. I was previously the admin intern at Martin Elementary, and I'm now the proud associate principal at Fisher Elementary.
Good evening, my name is Selena Quinilla. I was formerly the math specialist at Cody Elementary and now the associate principal at Cody Elementary.
Good evening, I'm Kara Beavers. I was formerly a 4th grade teacher at Scarborough Elementary and I am now associate principal at Scarborough Elementary.
Good evening, my name is Leticia Zababa. I was formerly at Pre-K for SA and now I'm grateful to be the associate principal at Rava Elementary.
Good evening, my name is Cole Potter. I was formerly the associate principal at Rava Elementary and I'm the proud principal at Rava Elementary.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Lansdale. I was the associate principal at Nichols Elementary and now I'm the proud principal at Nichols Elementary.
Hello, I'm Brooke Mallard. I was the associate principal at Ward Elementary and I'm the proud principal of Ward Elementary.
Good evening, I'm Jen Platt. I am formerly the associate principal at Scarborough Elementary and now I'm the associate principal at Wonky Elementary.
Hi, I'm Samantha Weisler. I was the associate principal at Wonky and now the principal at Wonky.
I'm Tammy Reyna. I was the proud associate principal of Cody Elementary for about 2.5 years, and now I get to be the proud associate principal of Leek Elementary.
Good evening, guys. Amber McWilliams. I was the former assistant principal at John Jay High School, and now I'm the associate principal at John Jay High School.
Good evening, I'm Pamela Furman. I'm the assistant principal at Jefferson High School and now assistant principal at Warren High School.
Hello, I'm Denise Canepa, and I was at USAA before coming to Northside. I'm happy to be the Director of Accounting and Accounts Payable.
Good evening, my name is Marisa Lucia Martinez. I am the proud associate principal at Powell, starting my 2nd year. Formerly, I was a special education teacher at Evers. Thank you.
Good evening, Angel Santa Cruz, formerly the 504 testing coordinator at Warren High School, now the assistant principal at Warren High School.
Good evening, my name is Sylvie Walters, formerly instructional coach at McNair Middle School, now the academic dean at Jordan Middle School.
Hi, good evening, I'm Jessica Marcha. I was previously the academic dean at Jordan Middle School and now I'm the director of the Jordan Multimedia and Design Magnet.
I'm Diane Alanis. I was formerly at Carlos Kuhn as the math specialist, and now I'm the associate principal at Scobie Elementary.
Hello, I'm Gina Rodriguez. I was previously the academic dean at South San Antonio High School and now I'm returning to Northside as the academic dean at Town High School.
Good evening, my name is Ryan Boyle. I was the former associate principal at Evers Elementary and I am now the current principal of Bolt Elementary.
Good evening, everyone. I am Jennifer De La Rosa, former associate principal at McAndrew Elementary, current associate principal at Carson Elementary. Go Cowboys!
Buenas noches. I was the assistant principal at Southside High School and now I'm the assistant principal at Brennan High School. Lorenzo Santana.
Good evening. My name's Ryan Brazel. I was the assistant principal at Brennan High School. Now I'm the new associate principal at Brennan High School.
My name is Kurt Wonderly. I was a science teacher at Taft High School, and I'm now an assistant principal at Brennan High School.
Hi, my name is Brett Jawasko. I was previously the boys basketball coach at O'Connor High School and currently an assistant director of athletics.
Hello, I am Cherie Rich. I was formerly an assistant principal at Warren High School.
and now the Academic Dean at Corinth, Texas.
I am Albert Patella. I was formerly program manager for Buckley Andrews and now the engineering director for security services.
Good evening, my name is Lizette DeLeon. I was formerly a pre-K teacher at Westwood Terrace and Richmond Academy, and now the proud associate principal at Westwood Terrace and Richmond Academy.
Good evening, I'm Kevin Vanlingham. I was the associate principal at Rudder Middle School, and I'm now the proud new principal at Pease Middle School.
Good evening, guys. I'm Paul Ramirez. I was the former principal at Rudder Middle School and now have the great opportunity to be the proud principal of the original Northside High School, John Marshall.
Hi, good evening. My name is Anna Lopez. I was formerly the Student Services Facilitator at Rudder, and this is my second year as Assistant Principal at Garcia Middle School.
Good evening. Conrad Hernandez, formerly an Assistant AD in the Athletic Office, now the Executive Athletic Director.
My name is Jessica Barrera. I was the ELA instructional coach at Pease Middle School and now the assistant principal at Pease Middle School. I'm also a proud product of all Northside schools.
Hello, I'm Brian Pfeiffer. I was the assistant principal at Jones and Peace Middle School, and now I'm the assistant principal at Sotomayor High School, and my favorite color is blue.
Good evening, my name is Cristóbal Saldaña. I formerly served as the associate principal at Seguin High School in Seguin, Texas, and now I'm an assistant principal at Sotomayor.
Good evening, my name is Terry Diaz. I was Assistant Director of Continuous Improvement and am now the Director of the Northside Education Foundation.
Well, again, congratulations to all of our administrators new to your roles, and particularly congratulations to those that are new to Northside as well. We're thrilled to have you as part of the team. Oftentimes, I'm asked, Dr. Grant, what is it that the superintendent does during the course of the summer months other than just kind of kick back and relax? Well, I think you probably just saw the demonstration. We hire. We hire quite a few individuals. But again, congratulations to our leaders. Congratulations again on a successful start to the school year. I know that it's going to be one that will have challenges along the way, but I have no doubt, no question at all that as a team we will navigate really as a result of your tremendous leadership. So again, congratulations, and hope that you've had a good week so far. Madam President and members of the board, I know that they would love to stay for the next couple hours of the board meeting, oh sure, yeah, I'm sorry, we probably need to introduce Ms. Megan Bradley as well. So, why don't we do that? Yeah.
We got some new cabinet members we think you'd like to meet.
We're trying to stay Hello, board. I am Megan Bradley. I'm the Deputy Superintendent of Business and Finance here at Northside. I wore my Northside blue also, and I come to you from Killeen Independent School District as the Deputy Superintendent of Operations.
Proud to be back in San Antonio, Texas. My favorite color is going to be and is currently Northside blue. And I'm a recovering superintendent from Killeen, Texas. So glad to be here. Thanks so much.
So again, you're welcome to stay. Well, I say that. Dr. Fay, Ms. Bradley, you're not included in this piece of the celebration, but you're more than welcome to stay, but we also understand we have school bright and early in the morning. So thank you guys again for all your hard work. It's going to be a great school year, and hope you have a good rest of the week.
Thank you.
Tina is with us. Tina, where are you from? Tina, great to be here. Thanks for being here this evening. Aaron is also with us. Aaron, great to see you. Tina, thank you so much, Tina, for being here. Zadara, thank you. And I think Josh is also Josh Alvin. These are, like I say, 5 of our newest ambassadors, and they're already being put to work. Monica's got them running already, so thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate your participation in this important process.
All right, so we're going to move on to our consent agenda. You have one person signed up for citizens to be heard for item number 5, so we'll go ahead and read that when that time comes, okay?
Yeah, so one follow-up item, Madam President, would be consent agenda 2B, the 4-H extracurricular status request. I don't know if you had the opportunity, I followed up with the criminal background check on those adjunct professors. So they do actually go through a pretty thorough criminal background check, and actually it's pretty thorough in our criminal background check, so we feel pretty good in that regard. And then I believe in the Friday letter, there was also a follow-up with the purchase of the attendance credits. Again, we don't anticipate this coming to fruition, but it is a formality, as you recall, that we do have to submit to DEA.
Thank you. All right, so do we have any motions to approve the consent agenda? Mrs. Green?
Yes, Dr. Duran, I move approval of consent agenda items.
And Mr. Salty was going to second that? Okay. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent agenda passes. But next we have our item number 4, business and finance.
Yeah, I'll turn this portion of the agenda directly over to Ms. Bradley and her team. There are 3 items they will present this evening, like the truth and taxation, which will, of course, have to be published in our local newspaper. We have an opportunity to save some significant funding, taxpayer dollars, in regards to some bond defeasance that we'll present. And then, of course, the presentation of our fiscal year 26 proposed budget, again, to be published and scheduled for your consideration for final approval on August 27th. With that, Ms. Bradley?
Yes, sir.
You have the floor.
Thank you. I'm going to invite Chris Grammer to come up to the podium. He's going to help us this evening with the first item, truth and taxation. So back in 2021, June of 2021, our school board took action to recommend and designate the Deputy Superintendent for Business and Finance, which is me, along with appropriate business office staff, which I'm going to say are right over here, Tiffany and Jake and Julie, along with state funding consultants, which Chris Grammer is one of our state funding consultants, to calculate our no new revenue tax rate as required by the legislature. And so that is still in effect. It was adopted that year to take place for the year of 2021 and subsequent years. So I'll remind the board that is in place. And so Chris is going to talk us through the truth and taxation notice that is talked about in your board packet. The draft notice that will go in the newspaper this weekend is there for you to review. He's going to go over the highlights of that process for you. So Chris, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley. Again, Chris Grammer, company is CG Strategies. And we work with school districts all across the state in this capacity, helping them set and adopt their tax rate and understand the many intricacies that are involved in that process. There isn't just the one tax rate that the taxpayers see, but many tax rates that are calculated in coordination with many different entities, TEA, the Comptroller's Office, the 3 different taxing jurisdictions, counties that this school district goes over, Bear, Bandera, and Medina. And then also working with, and I'll pause right here, I'm very confident that none of the other school districts I work with are watching tonight, so I will say this, that Ms. Bradley and her team are just a step above the rest. It's been a pleasure to work with them. They've made this a very smooth, transparent, and clean process, and so we're very fortunate to have all of them here working with Northside ISD. I work with many great people around the state, and they're just some of the best. So it's been a real pleasure on my behalf to work with not only the school district and Ms. Bradley and her team, and y'all are lucky to have her here.
Thank you. Good job.
The notice, and this is one of, there are many things that Northside does that interacts with the community, most importantly, educating the students and preparing the next generation to enter the adult life and the workforce and society. But one that touches many other people in one way that is impactful as well is the tax rate that you all levy. The notice that's set to go out to the public, I think was shared with you in your board packet. We've worked in coordination with the school district and those other entities that I've aforementioned in helping prepare that information that is before you and will go to the community. And I'm going to reference some of that. Of course, feel free to ask me any questions. If I don't belabor some of the points as much as you would like, I'm happy to elaborate on those. But chief among them and of most interest to most people are the M&O and INS tax rates. The tax rates that are levied to bring in the revenue in coordination with state funding to pay for the day-to-day operations, to pay for the fabulous people that were just introduced here, and educate the children that are part of the school district. So highlighted on the top of the notice is both the maintenance tax.
Chris, I'm sorry, just answer. I don't know, do we have the ability to pull this up for the public to view as well? I believe we should have it as a PDF document or Word docs. Apologize, Chris, thanks.
That's fine. While they do that, I'll just kind of talk about some of the other aspects of this process that don't entail the notice here that will be published and we'll discuss here shortly. Also, there's interaction with the state comptroller's office, and so they have a truth and taxation worksheet in which we also calculate some of the tax rates that are involved. From TEA, we get the maximum compressed rate, the MCR, so that's your tier 1 tax rate that the school district must levy in order to be eligible for any state funding and to be a part of the school finance system. There's the voter approved tax rate, there's the no new revenue tax rate, and then there's the proposed M&O and INS tax rates involved. So there again, there's a lot of moving parts, and then we take the aggregate of the tax base across the 3 counties to work with the local data that's going to be presented later as a part of the budget to get to what we put forth to the public here. So if we could scroll all the way, that's page 2, and then we're going to keep going up, and right there, that's a perfect place to stop. So outside the pertinent details in terms of when the public hearing will be held, to which comment can be made by any member of the public on the tax rates that are to be adopted, we jump to the maintenance tax and the debt service tax. So M&O tax or INS tax rate. Again, to the public, then on the tax bill, those are combined into one rate. And so oftentimes the taxpayer will just see the combined amount of those tax rates, and we'll get to a section that defines that, but just over $1 in total tax levy for each and every taxpayer here. But that's broken out into M&O and INS. So these rates should look familiar to you. They're similar to the rates that were adopted last year. Those are in response to the moving parts that are the legislation that is passed by the legislature, what happens in the local tax base, what happens in the budget, and the revenue needs that are required to run the day-to-day business of the school district. Based on those tax rates and looking at the tax base that's in place and what the legislature has done in terms of funding at the tier 1 level and the tier 2 level. And so to back up, as I'm using that terminology, just to make sure we're all on the same page, your tier 1 rate is set by TEA, and so that's the bulk of that 66 cents and change tax rate. So at 61.6194, that's the minimum that the school district can levy. In the past, we've approved 5 additional pennies, and so 66.94 is the maximum tax rate that the school district can adopt without going to the taxpayers for what's called a VADER, or a voter-approved tax rate election. So that's the rate that was proposed for this year. And then below that is the debt service tax rate of 33 cents and change. So again, those combine to $1 and 49 thousandth of a penny, if you will. Below that section, so again, that right there is primarily what most taxpayers are interested in, but the notice does have additional information for them to look at some comparisons, and these sections are all dictated by the legislature over time. Information has been required to be included in this notice, and so you can see the tax code references that are there. So again, that these sections are not thought up of locally, but this is what every school district is going through here. So you see the comparison to last year's budget to this year's budget, as well as then the total appraised value and total taxable value. So these are the combined values across the 3 counties, and you can see every taxpayer will be able to see the aggregate of the preceding year with the current year and the comparisons there. As we scroll down, the bonded indebtedness, so again, that second rate, that's a part of it, that 33 cents. Going to service, this is a line item that just shows the total outstanding debt. So not the amount that's being paid this year in by the revenue that's being brought in from that rate, but the total outstanding debt of the school district. Moving on to page 2, then we get into a comparison for the public to be able to see last year's rate compared with the bottom line being their proposed rate for the 2025-2026 school year. And then what will show up on the tax bill is the total rate there of just over $1, and then broken out on a per student and a revenue basis there. The section below that, again, a comparison of last year to this year. We're looking at just what's happening on the local tax base in terms of average market value, average taxable value for the residences within Northside ISD. So this is, again, a distinction between, this is not just Bexar County section, but this is of all 3 counties combined. Is there, and then the estimated increase or decrease in the tax bill as it pertains to Northside ISD. In this case, a decrease on the average taxable value of residents from last year. The remaining sections are informational in terms of, again, as I alluded to, the rate that is the maximum that is allowable for the school district to adopt without holding a ratification election, and then the fund balances that the school district maintains. Again, the inclusion of this information here is part of the budget, but as we understand the school district budget, the fund balances are not as we have a savings account. The fund balance is an amount of money that the school district has to be able to move from one fiscal year to the next to absorb ups and downs in revenue and when those come in and when expenditures are. So oftentimes I find the inclusion of this a little misleading, because many times it's jumped to, why are you hoarding all that cash? And that's not the case. This is different from the rainy day fund that the legislature holds. This is to help smooth out the transitions from revenue and expenditures on a year-to-year basis throughout the year. I know I went through that kind of rather quickly, but I'm trying to be cognizant of your agenda tonight, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have or go back to any sections.
Mrs. Freeman?
On page 1, please review, under the comparison proposed budget with last year's budget, debt service, is that the rate, or is that, because our rate has been flat for a very long time, 33.55. Is this debt service, what does that 8.1% reflect?
The increase in the expenditure from year to year. And so the changes between what's happening in the tax base, what's happening, and I know we have our next presenter is going to talk about what's going on with the bonded indebtedness and the schedules of payments, but changes within that then result in that percentage change, whereas the tax rate that
It has nothing to do with the rate.
That's correct. That is just revenue within the budget aspect of the debt service.
Our debt service will go up in the next fiscal year for a sizable amount. but the type of debt that it is, we've actually been paying a portion of it, prepaying for it, and so it's sitting in an account. So that's why our tax rate is going to be able to maintain flat. But you'll see between Michelle's presentation and mine, that change in that debt service.
Thank you. And one other question, if I may. Ms. Bradley, question for Ms. Bradley. Many times during the year, we have notices that must be posted in the newspaper, and I always ask about the cost of how much this actually costs, because we continue to go to our legislatures and ask for relief of not having to print this in a print edition of the newspaper, and we can post it on our website and such. How much is this costing?
$4,200 to put in the newspaper. One time. It is a required.
Only $4,200.
$4,200.
Thank you.
I will say to that note, although that's, not a whole salary, it is dollars when y'all are making very tough decisions, that there's hopefully continued momentum within the legislature for relief from that to be able to post this online, but although that's not the case right now, and again, I will not speak to anything that I hold any hopes of the legislature doing one thing or the other, but again, a small change that we like to see among many of them.
Thank you for that. This is not the only posting that we have here.
No, it is not.
So it would be interesting to have that for the entire year at an appropriate time. Thank you.
And so the intent of this notice is to tell the public that we are going to host a public meeting at our next meeting on August 26th and invite them to come and listen to that discussion and be able to speak towards the budget for us that night. That's the very top line of this piece. So that's the information that the public receives, to invite them to come and be part of the process.
Thanks, Dr. Hall. I think Laura and I kind of put our heads together on this one. So can you go back to the purpose of the, and maybe this is more of a Megan question to come in. What are some reasons we're going to share this? What else are we going to share? And then what do we hope to accomplish from that meeting?
So we will have a presentation at the beginning of the board meeting on the 26th that will go through a basic presentation of many of the things you've already seen through time. The general pay increase, the cost there, and things that you'll see tonight also. So to inform the public that may be the first time they're really listening to it, to give them a big picture view of what we're going to ask the board to propose. And it's to ask them to come in and provide input on that budget process and what we're proposing for the budget. And then we will be asking the board to take action to adopt the budget and the tax rates on that night. And this is pre-informing the public through the newspaper notice of what those budgets will look like by this preaching piece here of showing that O&O budget will decrease, the debt service budget is increasing, and what we're expecting the tax rates to be.
So would that be an opportunity, well, two things. Would that be an opportunity to talk about what a TRE is or later?
We could. We don't have that currently set up in the presentation, but we can.
That combined.
Yes, that would be appropriate to put into the presentation. We don't have it there now, but we can easily add a slide of similar information on what we brought to the board previously, so the public sees that. I can do that.
The other is, if we're paying $4,000, can we provide additional information to this, like a one-pager on the budget or something else? Can we sneak some, not sneak, but
unfortunately, it is very regulated. The font sizes, the size that we have to take up, and it has to be this document.
Yeah, that's not to say that we can take out another ad.
We can take another ad, yes.
This, we go through this with a fine tooth comb. This has to be exactly verbatim, particular size. This is very prescribed as a result of legislation.
That's correct. And we can't include anything else on this 2 pages and how it outlays. Again, anything additional would have to be outside of that.
Is this the steps that we take asking for greater, for
No, this is simply notifying the public of our intent to set the tax rate on the 26th. The voter or the voter approved tax ratification election, again, there'll have to be an efficiency study. Yes, there will be required notice postings, but it's very different than approved taxation.
Ms. Sabata, if you look at the second page towards the bottom of the presentation, if they can go down to that area where it says the $0049 twice, that second page, that area is saying that is the maximum rate that you could adopt as a board without going out for the vader. That is the rate we are proposing, and so that we are not asking for a vader. If next year we decide we would want to go out for a vader, that section would still be what it calculates to be. Maybe this rate, maybe something different, but that we would ask the board to approve a rate that's higher than that rate, and that's what initiates the vader.
And so we would be looking at an additional 3 pennies. We talk about those 3 open pennies, so that rate would increase by 3 pennies in essence.
So this process, the truth in taxation process, is dictated by the tax code that's been put in place nearly just over 40 years ago in terms of discussing how to bring the public and make them aware of what's going on locally. The vader or the tax rate election process is in addition to that sort of process, as Dr. Kraft just mentioned, just to allude to it. It starts much earlier, and really in the spring there are many steps that you have to take well in advance of this to get to this place for that presentation to include a tax rate that would be higher than just what's already been previously approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
So we'll go about reaching out to the San Antonio Express and having this published within the required timeline so that they're August 26th.
Yes, sir. So our next presenter is Michelle Aragon with Hilltop Securities. Right there. She snuck over. Okay, so Michelle has been assisting the district with for many years, working on our debt rate and our debt portfolio, I would call it. We've been emailing. We had a defeasance that just went, well, I think it goes through on Friday. But we transferred the money. We've got it all ready to go. And so Michelle's, we talk on a regular basis mostly through email, I shouldn't say talk, some Zoom meetings. But her firm does a great job of working our debt portfolio because it is a large debt portfolio that is very complex. And so thank you, Michelle, for that work that you do with our team. Should recognize that Denise Canepa, that was recognized earlier as one of our newer employees, so she's been here almost a year now, and her team is the one that really does that work that's there. So Michelle's going to talk a little bit tonight about the defeasance process and what that means for our tax rate and how we manage our tax rates.
Thank you. Thank you, Megan.
And there's one page slide there. Okay.
While she gets that going, Madam President, Board of Trustees, Dr. Kraft, thank you for having me here this evening. As Megan said, my name is Michelle Aragon. I'm with Hilltop Securities. We serve as a district's financial advisor. We assist with all of the bond issues, including bond elections and the management of the district's existing debt. This evening, I'm here to talk about cash defeasance. And cash defeasance is just a fancy word for the prepayment of existing bonds with cash on hand. They provide debt service savings to the district, and they assist with managing your INS tax rate, the debt service tax rate portion. In order to authorize a cash defeasance, the board must adopt a redemption resolution that creates the obligation to prepay the existing debt obligations. The district has historically utilized cash defeasances, and there on the right, you'll see a chart showing the different defeasance amounts from 2019 through the current one in 2025, totaling $435.05 million. As Megan alluded to, we are in the process of doing the cash defeasance for 2025. That amount was $100.49 million. That paid off the entire series 2015. There's 2 bond issues that it paid off. We're going to do that on Friday, the 15th, and that is going to produce $31.82 million in debt service savings for the district. We plan to do another cash defeasance in 2026. That approximate amount is $84.36 million. We don't know the exact savings because once we get into the 26 fiscal year, we will choose the bonds that produce the most debt service savings for the district and then report that back when we perform that cash defeasance. But if the district decides to go forward with it, there will be a redemption resolution at the next board meeting for the board to approve to proceed with the 2026 cash defeasance. So short and sweet, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I think it's safe to say that the administrative recommendation is going to be to go forward with the cash defeasance as proposed. Anytime we can save our taxpayers money, we're going to jump at that opportunity. So I think you.
I say one thing. One of the reasons why we're able to keep the debt service tax rate level for as many years as we have is because the district does a great job of managing its existing debt and paying off bonds early when we can, and that creates the capacity for new bonds and the savings, debt service savings to the taxpayers.
My question that I have really quickly, maybe this will answer some. Is the defeasance amount like strategically set up a show that it increases and then at the peak was 25 and then we went down again? So how is that organized or structured?
It is really based on, well, there's a couple things. Sometimes it gets larger because the district might have excess funds in that existing balance. You saw on the sheet before there was existing debt service balance. If that gets high and the district wants to contribute more money from that, then that's why that's a larger amount. If there's more penalty payments throughout the year, various tax monies that come in, then there's more, that number gets larger.
Mrs. Freeman, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. Was there legislation, wasn't there discussion about districts paying down debt that you couldn't do it anymore without a penalty? Can you please?
Yeah, it was proposed.
Yes, ma'am, and it did pass, yes. However, it is the difference. So, as you know, there's been various levels of the changes for the homestead exemption. When 2 years ago, the last biennium, when it was raised 100,000, the state said we're going to give districts what's called additional state aid for homestead exemption. So there's monies, and that also determines that money, that amount getting larger because you're getting some more extra money from the state to help that difference between the homesteads. So for the legislature, what just passed this current session is the difference between if a district goes forward with a cash defeasance, you will not receive that additional state aid from the homestead exemption, but only the part from 140,000 to 100,000, which we don't actually know that number yet, but you will still receive the existing. And so just to give you, last year, the district received 23 million? Yeah, 23 million in state aid, but the defeasance that we're going to do is saving you 31 million. So when you look at that, the additional dollars, there's value in paying off debt early.
Not as much advantage as we had.
There's going to be some difference as the laws change. The other thing that is going to change is, but it's not going to be for this tax year, it will be for tax year 26, will be how the board adopts that adopts your tax rate. There you have to have a 60% approval by the board, and you have to have certain language in your approval, but that doesn't go into effect until tax year 2026.
This is it's an unfair question, but maybe a future one. I was just curious on, if we incur no further debt, how long will it take us to pay off all our debt? That's why I said it's not a fair
Depending on if you
question.
keep the tax rate the same, I'm not sure, but well, we just issue new bonds this year, and they typically have a 30-year final maturity because we match the useful life and we're dealing with buildings. And so right now the final payment is in 2055. However, that depends on your taxable values, collections, tax mandates we get from Austin. So there's a lot of contributing factors.
I guess the other way to ask it is, what's our total debt right now?
Total principal, I think, is 2.44.
Okay, that's all.
Outstanding.
And we'll show you a slide here in a moment on, that shows yeah, you're just always ahead of the game. But going through 2055, like Michelle said, but we would have opportunities for restructuring and refinancing that could bring that up.
That's correct.
So we'll look at that.
We do cash defeasances, and then when there's opportunity to refinance bonds, so that means you're issuing a refunding bond issue, much like when you would refinance your home mortgage, you exchange your current rate for a lower rate, However, and you have debt service payments, however, with that, you're still issuing bonds. With cash defeasance, you're not issuing any new debt, that debt is gone and off your books.
So to go back to Mrs. Freeman's question, isn't it almost like a early payment penalty if you want to pay over 100,000 now from 100 to 140?
The state is trying to make it like that.
Kind of like a consumer.
It is not, it shouldn't be, for the district, for the taxpayers, and I should introduce I am a proud Northside parent. I had a recent Taft High School graduate, and my son is a 5th grader at Medellus, and so, this affects me too, and so I will show up and down how much the defeasance really saves the taxpayers.
Thank you. Do you have a question over here? Oh. All right. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Michelle. We appreciate it. So our next item on the agenda is a budget planning update, and so we are going to go through some items related to the budget. And I will have to send Mr. Blood back that slide so that you can see that presentation.
I'm not here, but
Okay. So tonight we're going to look at some more of our budget reviews. We're preparing for the big budget night, which will be August 26th. And so we're going to go through a few things for you tonight. We're going to review the proposed budgets here, the 3 listed. We're going to look at our taxable values, and we're going to talk about our proposed tax rate. So the legislature that is codified in the Texas Education Code requires that our superintendent either prepare or cause to be prepared a budget that's proposed to you on or before August 20th. So tonight, that's what this presentation is. We are bringing forward those proposed budgets that are required by law to be proposed to you before the 20th. So that's what we're doing for tonight. The general fund, which is also known as the maintenance and operation fund, these are the big items that are included in our budget that we want to make sure that you're paying attention to. We have taxable value reductions, though our values themselves have grown. The overall value, the net value, has decreased due to the homestead exemptions that Michelle just talked about, and we talked about at the last board meeting. We also want to remind the board that our average daily attendance, which drives most of our state aid funding, is decreasing. You can see that we ended our 24-25 year at 91,574. We're budgeting at 91,500, so we're watching that enrollment and attendance very closely. But we, as you know, we've opened an open enrollment. We are allowed to now have our classroom teachers have their own children that are in pre-K come to full-day pre-K for free, so we're hoping to see some increased enrollment from the original projection. So this is the projection we're using. And then I also want to remind our board and say thank you to our board for the compensation plan that you approved for our employees and put those on here, because that is a large expenditure, but giving back to our employees that do so much for us. So these are some of the big drivers of our budget as we're talking about the general fund. As we look at our revenue, you have probably heard that, historically, it's been discussed that the local taxpayers would pay half the cost of the public education area, and state would pick up half of it. So I want to show you that that's no longer true. You can see that it's a little closer to that this coming year than it was last year, but we had our taxpayers paying 55% of our revenue for the general fund for the current year that's about to end. And for next year, we're projecting that to go down to 51%. And then the state aid is flip-flopping and making up that difference in our budget. So I know this is a question you probably get asked a lot, so I want to give this information to you in a quick and easy review. And that is due to the legislative updates that came in through the state aid that increased that state revenue. This is our general fund proposed budget. Again, you've been seeing lots of pieces of this as we have gone through. You have our revenues have increased by about $62 million from our budget, from our adopted budget that came to you this time last year. And then our expenditures have actually decreased from last year as we did all of the work that we did at budget reductions. Even with the pay increases, the compensation plan, we have actually still reduced the expenditure budgets. So our net change that we're proposing tonight is a reduction of fund balance of $26.8 million. You can see that at the bottom. That would come from our instructional continuity. As you remember from our previous conversations that we talked in depth about that instructional continuity, we expect to have $49 million in that instructional continuity rolling into this year, the fiscal year 26 year, and it will be reduced by $26 million as we continue to try to get to a balanced budget. Our goal is for the year after this, the 27 year, when I'm sitting here, to be bringing to a balanced budget at that point, circle it. But we're making strides. We're doing well with that. So this is our proposed general fund budget. I wanted to point out to the board, because I think it's important for you to know, that in this proposed budget, looking at it in a different way, I should have said the previous view is what TEA requires you to see as you're proposing, as you're adopting. That format is, and I'm going to go back just to point it out. TEA requires that the board adopt the budgets in this format where you're showing your expenditures by function code. And so that's why we do it this way, because that's TEA required view of the budget. But I think it's a lot easier to see when you take that same dollar amount that we were showing in the previous slide, show it in its pie chart, and show you that 87.9% of our budget is payroll-related cost. So that's payroll and benefits. That makes up that 87.9% of our general fund budget. The Child Nutrition Fund is the second fund that we will ask our board to approve on the 26th, so we will show you that proposed budget on the next slide. I think it is a lot of department. They do a great job. They have 76 campuses that have the community eligibility provision known as CEP that provides free breakfast and lunch for all students of the campuses that are eligible for this CEP provision. That's a 4-year provision, and we are starting year 3, so we will have this year and one more year for these schools, and then we'll have to go back and rebalance and see what schools are there. But this is great for those 76 schools that they do not have to worry about breakfast or lunch for anyone on the campus. Also, the team has been able to balance with the increased prices of food costs and the general pay increase, that they are not having to go up on the student paid meals. They have not increased the student paid meal price, which is on the bottom left chart there, for 9 years. So they have kept it steady for 9 years, which is phenomenal. I do not know many school districts that, if any, that have been able to do that.
Is this cost, is there like a competitive, or is this a set price?
There's a calculator that they actually have to do to be able to qualify on the free and reduced lunch side to make sure that our paid prices are within a window. So they have to do the calculation on that piece, but they are very low.
Well, they're super low. That's what I'm wondering, like these meal cost prices, we set those, right?
We do, yes ma'am.
I mean, because I know that the districts are much higher.
Yes, and we considered coming and asking for a price increase this year, especially with the general pay increase, because that does hit their pocketbook. If you remember from the budget amendment, you'll see that it coming forward on the 26th for them of this year. Also, they purposely were spending down their fund balance and doing some upgrades in the kitchens with the fund balance that they were able to recognize through the COVID years and a lot of grants that were received during that time frame. And so they're still, you're going to see that they're proposing a balanced budget, but Mr. Weary has made it very clear to me if they have any deficit at all, they're still okay with that because they do have a good size fund balance still. They don't expect to go into that, but they don't want to raise meal prices before they need to. And so I appreciate that very much. So he's watching it very closely. They watch the meal cost very closely and the labor costs that go into those items. They are running a large business in the school nutrition.
Thank you.
Yes. So another big piece that you may not be aware of is the Texas Department of Agriculture has come in this year and statewide said that they are going to cover the cost of the reduced meals. So if you think in the past the breakfast and lunch costs may have, if you're on the reduced program and you qualify for that, you may have paid 25 cents for the meal. The TDA has come in this year and said they're covering that cost. So all of our students that fill out a National School Lunch Program application and qualify as either free or reduced will not have to pay anything at the register this coming year, which is also another a very good thing.
I remember those days.
Yes, so it's one less thing, right? And one less thing you have to think about. And so that is a wonderful benefit for our students also. So you have our paid meal prices on the left, you have our adult visitor cost on the right hand side. Those have fluctuated and gone up over the 9 years, some, but still very reasonable, and I encourage you, if you're at a campus reading, to stop by and have breakfast or lunch at the cafeteria. So Mr. Weary and I plan to go to. Okay. We'll get you a menu so that you can see. So our child nutrition budget, this is their proposed budget that is a balanced budget. As you see at the bottom is 0, so that means your revenue and expenditures are the same cost. They have had some reduction in their revenues and expenditures. As the students' numbers decrease, their revenue goes down also. And so the good news is when those numbers decrease, the costs go down too, so we're able to keep that in check. So we are proposing a balanced budget for the child nutrition fund. Moving on to the debt service fund that Michelle was just talking about. These are the items that we have in our debt service payment plan for this year. We have principal payments of $94 million, proposing a defeasance of $84 million. Again, the board will need to take action on that item on the August 26th meeting for us to be able to do that. Then there'll be interest payments of $95 million and some fees that go along with that. I'm going to show you a slide here in a moment that will be able to see that more visually, but this is the debt service budget proposed. It goes with the payment plan that we talked about. So our total expenditures would be $275 million that we showed on the other page, with these local revenue bringing in most of that revenue. So this is our debt service payout that Mr. Blunt was asking about. So I'm just a few minutes too late to show this to him. But you can see, if you were able to see 25, fiscal year 25 on the left-hand side, that is no longer showing because we're about to end that year on August 31st. It looked a lot more like 2027, so it was lower, and so next year we do jump up a little bit in our debt service payments, and that's why the expenditures go in the spring. So that's the difference of when you have the 8% increase. That's why we are able to keep our debt service rate level through the work of Michelle and the team, the whole team here, but working very hard to be able to do refundings when we can. So if you think out to, I'm going to just show a hypothetical, maybe 2039, you can see how it drops pretty significantly in 2039 from 2038 on what we would owe that year on debt service payments. If we're able, we will come in and refund some of the items that are further out to the right from 2039 and ladder them back on top of that, so that again we can keep the tax rate level. Our goal would be to keep it as flat as possible across the top. So if we do go out for a bond election next November, what we will work to do is fill in any gaps along that line and keep it level for as long as you can out, so that your tax rate can remain the same. You don't want your tax rate to dip and then have to bring it back to go up. You want it to stay flat or decrease as you can. Sometimes you can't do that, especially with the bond election. But you can see that we had capacity in our ladder, is what they call it, laddering it out, to be able to fill in gaps and keep it steady going forward. So that would be our goal as we work through bond election. And now we're going to talk a little bit about taxable values. We have 3 counties, as Chris told you about. So we are Northside ISD. A lot of people do not realize this, and Ms. Freeman realizes it from where her district is, that we actually hit Bear County, Medina County, and Bandera County. So we have values in all of those. You can see they have all reduced, and the reduction is due to that exemption from the homestead exemption and the over 65 and disabled exemptions that are increasing also. The comptroller, TA, has directed the comptroller to have us utilize those increased exemptions, even though we will have to vote on them as taxpayers in the next election. But they assume they will increase. And then our proposed tax rates. These are the tax rates, as you saw in the notice that Chris Kramer went through, that we are proposing. As part of the budget process, when we bring it to you on the 26th, we will ask you to approve the budgets first. Even though the budgets take these tax rates into account, that's how we calculate them. The education code that's on the bottom left-hand side, you can go in and read those sections of TE's Texas Education Code that says you must first adopt the budgets and then adopt the tax rates. Again, this is where if we were asking for a waiver, we are not. I want to make it very clear. We're not asking for a waiver this year, but next year when we're here, we will likely be asking the board to adopt a tax rate that we're using to build the budgets that will be higher than that maximum allowed without voter approval. But for this year, you can see on the top and the bottom slides that we are proposing the exact same tax rate as we have currently, which is great for both the M&O and the INS. I was expecting our M&O rate to go down through further tax compression, but due to the additional exemptions, it stayed flat, which I think many people were expecting to go down, so a lot of people did a lot of research, and we determined that it was because of those exemptions and the values decreasing. We kept our rate steady for M&O, and then our INS, as Michelle told us, we talked through, we worked very hard to keep it consistent. So this is our tax rate history by year. So if you look at the bottom light blue area, that is our INS in the same value since 2015. Back in 2015, our M&O rate was $1.04, and then the legislature came in that 2019 year and started working on the tax compression, and it's continued to come down through tax compression through those additional years as we move across time. So our next steps are, we will have the notice of public hearing. We'll go into the newspaper this weekend that you've seen the draft in your packet. And then on August 26th, we will come back here. We will give a presentation and early in the agenda and ask the board to open it up for public comment in case anyone wants to speak to that presentation. We will add items about bigger into that presentation for you, Dr. Harrell. If there's anything else the board would like to see, I'm happy to add in. We have a lot of information we've talked about since February, and so if there's something that you think it's important for the public to see, we'll add it in there. I will also take this time to tell you that we have gone into board docs and moved all of our presentations that were in administrative content into the public content. So, and we'll do the same tomorrow. Once we finish this meeting, I will move this into public comment, our public section tomorrow. So rather than adding them to our budget transparency website, it was getting pretty full of the presentations. Figure that way it's real easy to find and it's view for anyone in the public can see those. So we've started doing that. And then again on the 26th, after that presentation, then we will again post the next day onto that section. We'll have the public hearing, and then we'll ask the board in the finance section of the board meeting to consider the budgets and the tax rate for adoption. I know that's a lot.
Dr. Harrell?
For any questions?
Thank you.
No, this is great. I don't have a question about this. I still have a question about how to get the word out. So I know with catching up with what's your guy's name? Catching up with Cash. That might get people's attention, right? I know. Maybe, I'm just wondering how, because we do get a high readership on that. I'm wondering how we can have links to any kind of public information. Just this will be, now that I understand it a little better, a year-long process to get it to a bigger. So, I know.
Yeah, I mean, this upcoming week will be our first edition, as promised. Don't know what campus we'll be visiting just yet, but we can absolutely discuss the budget. We can add hyperlinks. I mean, this is pretty.
I don't know how many people go to the site that you just shared. Maybe there's a way to measure that, but
yeah, we run metrics.
Much word out about the budget, and there's just a lot of confusion.
Well, that'd be
not confusion, just not knowing.
Next year, when it's time to make this community, we will have meetings like we do.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
And keep in mind too that this is probably going to be in conjunction with also a bond election. So a lot of communication efforts.
It'll be very busy. Dr. Hassan?
Yes. I just wanted to mention, I mean, I think this is also a big part of going to our community meetings or HOA meetings, because that is where a lot of our community wants to know what's going on and really, you know, how to make that in a way that we could give them the information. Sometimes it'll just be me, so what information is the best information to give them when I'm going out there? And I think it's important to kind of do that. I know I also kind of want to mention, like, of course, HOA meetings. We also have a Saturday event coming up at Northside AFT, our Schools Democracy, and also Councilman Calon. So there's different opportunities that we're really focusing on to go out there and let the community know, because, you know, as we're here, this is recorded, but as we're here, like, there's a handful of people here, like our voters and individuals that are going to be voting on this, need to know this, like, now, so they kind of are fully aware, because one of the biggest things is, you know, you don't want to be going to community meetings just asking for this. Like, you want them to already know you and be someone already in your community, because if not, then it's like, oh, like, it's Northside again asking for a tax increase, instead of like, oh, it's my, you know, school board member or my superintendent that comes to our community pretty regularly, that attends events, that is part of the community, and they're here to give us more information about it. Because, I mean, and then I guess it's also the rules with it and against it, because I know there's certain things as a board member and as a superintendent, like, we can't really tell people to vote in one way or another when it comes to that decision. So what is that information that we can share, so we're not violating anything by giving information to the community?
Yeah, we'll have, like I say, a pretty in-depth electioneering do's, don'ts, can'ts, shalls. It has to be education. It has to be purely an education platform. I think with fiscal year 26 and 19 slides doesn't do justice to, and doesn't really articulate the amount of work that has transpired. And here's one big talking point, because I think it was mentioned in convocation, but it's a big one. The reality is that as a result of collaborative teamwork, we've reduced a deficit, an operational deficit budget, $80 million in 1 year. That's a reality. We were operating 105, almost $106 million deficit budget, and now it's down to 26. And we're going to continue to capitalize on efficiencies. I think the second talking point is that, yes, while appraised values have slightly increased, the tax rate, which you have within your jurisdiction, is flat. There is not going to be an increase in the tax rate. Now, the argument can be, well, you received additional revenue from the state as a result of House Bill 2. I would push back. I am going to push back. The reality is that the additional revenue that we have any flexibility with has gone straight to compensation and the compensation package that you've already approved. And so, going back to that talking point number one, that deficit budget wasn't a reduction as a result of this truckload of additional state revenue. It just wasn't, and we can demonstrate and prove that time and time again. And then the third talking point, I think is really important, and almost kind of words of encouragement. While we're talking about student enrollment, we're looking at student enrollment numbers as of yesterday, and will as of today throughout the rest of the week and into next. Our attendance rate is really important. So, in helping to encourage, particularly parents of kids coming to school, is really important, because that does impact the bottom line. The higher the attendance rate we can attain, the better. And of course, enrollment is interrelated into that whole conversation. But it's really talking about things that we can control and have worked on, I think are really the big talking points for this particular budget.
Mrs. Freeman?
Thank you. I think, my opinion, I think we've got to be very careful about getting too far ahead of ourselves when we talk about the Vader and the bond. One, we haven't approved the Vader yet, and we've discussed it probably much sooner than many other school districts discuss it. And I think it's great to talk to our patrons to let them know that that's what we're considering. But regarding specifics on that, we don't even know how many pennies we're going to ask for, because we haven't discussed it, whether we're going to go into the copper pennies or we're going to just increase it for the golden pennies. So I want us to be careful so that we're not giving misinformation as well up front. Okay to mention it, but specifics we actually don't have.
We don't have specifics, but we have a pretty good trajectory of where we're headed and what kind of a deficit budget is going to be proposed even for the following fiscal year, minus another round of looking at compensation. So you're correct. We're much further ahead than 99% of the districts in the state of Texas right now.
So these are your official proposed budgets? as you see them before you, they will be the budgets that are used for the notice that you have seen, and you'll see that in the newspaper this weekend, and then we'll come back on the 26th and the public hearing and ask the board to adopt the budgets and tax rates. Nancy,
You
repeat
get
it,
to see,
start again.
you get to see it another round. I appreciate Megan and her team's effort, because like I say, it's been a lot of work, and it's not captured really in the 19 slides, so thank you again to your team, and really the entire Northside team.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. All right, so we're now moving on to our item number 5 on the agenda, and this is the one we did have citizens to be heard.
Yes, ma'am.
So for this, we want just you to know that we value your opinion and we will listen to what you have to say, although we are restrained by law from taking any action. So if you could please address your remarks to the board and confine your remarks to the policy or the practice, and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. And at 3 minutes, you're going to be asked to wrap up your remarks. And please do not make any personal attacks on individuals. Thank you.
The only individual we have signed up this evening is Catherine Rouse.
Good evening. I am Catherine Rouse. I have students in NISD. We've lived here since 2012, so we've had one in NISD since then, and I have 3 kids here actually. One just graduated so wait here the whole time they were in school, graduated early. What concerns me about this law, my brother went to Columbine. I was in the middle school down the street. There was no lockdown policy at the time, as you can imagine. I was in an outbuilding because we had extra buildings because it was a overcrowded middle school. And we weren't attached to an intercom, so I don't know what happened inside the school, but my teacher got a phone call. And they said, lock your door and make your students next to the wall. Nobody's leaving. And so what concerns me the most about this policy is the thought of students getting their phones taken away from them. I don't mind so much that they're not allowed to use them in class. They shouldn't be using them in class in the first place. And if my daughter ever used her phone in class and got it taken away from her, I'd be like, bravo teacher, take it. She shouldn't have had it out. But not getting it back till the end of the school day if something should happen. And she's not in a place with a teacher and nobody knows where she's at. Should she get injured, and the fastest way to figure out who she is and to contact me would be that she had her phone on her person and they could find mom in the contact and call me and say, hey, your daughter was injured. Should she be scared and not be able to remember my phone number that she's had memorized since she was 3 to be able to use somebody else's phone because she doesn't have a phone with her? How is she supposed to get in contact with me if she's been running? Because there was a superintendent somewhere else where somebody said, I want to be able to call my mom in an emergency, and he said, you can go to the office for that. How are we depending in this day and age, the way schools are these days, for a student to be able to go to an office? And when I told my mom that somebody said that, having lived her experience with a student at a school that had to run up a hill with his best friend who had been shot 5 times and almost didn't make it, and hide behind a shed, and the fact that they had a phone on them was the only reason they could get to safety, that we're going to the office to call for help. And also students having their phone being confiscated, and I read the TEA guidance, and only a parent being able to pick it up. We also live in a day and age where parents work all the time, from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. How are they supposed to get to the office to get that back? How are they supposed to have the time to do that if that is the only phone that child has at home? Because there's also no house phones. So I just want you to consider that as you make your policy. Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and at this time direct the board to the FNCE proposed revisions documents. The board docs, you do have the current FNCES approved. I think just going to the revisions, you can see the marked up version, and you can see really what we're trying to accomplish. Again, as discussed previously, and while I know this is first reading, I feel like we've had the opportunity to really discuss what the prohibition of telecommunication devices during the school day would look like in Northside ISD. I'm really pretty pleased to say that as a result of, again, the first day and now the second day, this is being communicated, and I'll briefly describe what this is going to look like from an administrative regulation vantage, or really implementation. But the policy is pretty straightforward, and again, this is truly a result of House Bill 1481. We've been working with TASB Legal. We were awaiting the TEA guidance, which was just released last week, and so I know that one of the questions was asked, well, why did we wait until the second day of school? Well, one, it doesn't go into effect until September, but we also wanted to make sure that what we were prepared to put into practice, we weren't going to have to redirect our course in going forward, and so I'm pretty pleased with where we stand currently, because this is very different. So telecommunication devices is not just cell phones. I know that's oftentimes really what it's referred to, but it also includes iPads and other electronic devices, to include headphones. The school day is really defined as the beginning of the school day, so first bell to the end of the school day. I know that there's been a lot of questions in and around, well, what about passing periods and lunch periods? The author of the bill and the legislative intent is very clear that that is considered to be during the course of the school day. Again, a lot of research and a lot of conversation has transpired as 1481 was engrossed. Basically, the district will comply with the House bill as it, like I say, was legislatively intended, with the exception that we're and I say exception, we are not going to prohibit these devices from coming to school. The students are going to be able to bring the devices to school. At the beginning of the day, we're simply asking them to power them off, place them in their backpack, which will then go into a designated area in the classroom. If the students don't bring a backpack to school, we'll have the designated area or trays or pouches, or really however the classroom teacher so chooses, to collect the devices, again, power it off, and then redistribute it at the end of that class period. But I do believe that most students are going to find that bringing the backpack to school, powering them off, placing them in the backpack and in a designated area is likely going to be the most common practice. And so again, we're trying to work to strike this balance of, we absolutely want to protect the integrity of instructional time. We want students to come to school, come to class, attend class with the intent to focus on learning. At the same time, I do agree, and I think that as a parent, we're in a day and age that safety is of a top priority and concern, as it should be. And so the idea of collecting phones, collecting devices at the beginning of the day, and then trying to redistribute logistically across 132 campuses, it's just not feasible. I'll be the first to admit, it would be a Herculean effort that I just, quite honestly, don't want to task with our administrators nor our teachers. The prohibition, i.e. they don't come to school at all, is another option. It's not going to happen. We can pretend like, yes, we're prohibiting phones from communication devices from coming to school. They're going to come to school. And so then we'll be policing that matter day in, day out, class period through class period. And so I think that, like I say, striking this balance of creating an environment, a learning environment of mutual respect, so that the teachers are not having to battle cell phone utilization, but at the same time, really trying to comply with the law, but also protect the integrity of instructional time as outlined in this policy. So we have a communication video that actually two of our student ambassadors, Preston and Navani, help us with, which we'll show here in just a minute. But there are some exceptions, and these are the exceptions that are outlined in this particular law. One of the exceptions is if it's necessary for the student's IEP or 504 plan to be implemented. Also, if there's documentation due to a directive from a qualified physician, they may keep on their person their cell phone. And then the third, if it's a necessity to comply with the health safety requirements and district safety campus protocols. Well, so I think that interpretation is if there's some form of reporting system that would require students to have their phone in their possession, that would be the exception. That one's, it's going to be interesting to see how that's interpreted and implemented going forward. You will receive a report in regards to the implementation of this policy. Another one of the questions is asked, well, what about the consequences? Well, our code of conduct clearly outlines consequences that are on a graduated scale for insubordination. Again, our expectation, our directive to students has already been place your cell phones, turn them off, power them off, place your cell phones in your backpack in the designated area in the classroom. If it's a matter of non-compliance, it's really insubordination at that point, and there will be graduated, like I say, disciplinary consequences. As far as the confiscation of phones, it's clear in the legislation, it's clear in policy, yes. If the students are continuously disruptive and or non-compliant, then at that time the cell phone can be confiscated. But that will not be upon first warning, even the second consequence. That will be a graduated disciplinary matrix. So like I say, this is the policy. I realize that this is first reading. We are asking the board's consideration tonight simply because we'd like to have this put in place so that we can really refine administrative regulations and our student handbooks going forward. I know you probably have some questions. I do think we have a quick video, again, thanks to Preston and Navani, two of our ambassadors, that per your approval of this policy, we're going to go to work pretty swiftly in launching this. Our community, not only what our expectations are, but what they can expect this to look like through full implementation throughout the course of the school year. Monica, I don't know, Barry, Les, and we'll be glad to answer questions.
This year there's a new rule about phones and other communication devices.
Actually, it's not just a rule. Texas law now says that phones and other communication devices cannot be used during the school day. We obviously don't create the laws, but the intention behind this is to limit distractions, and in the end will help us all learn better.
So here's the deal. From the first bell of the day to the last bell of the day, your phone, it must be placed in your backpack and kept in a designated location inside the classroom. Students without a backpack will be asked to place their phone in a designated phone holder.
And it's not just your phone. Smartwatches, earbuds, tablets, and even those fancy smart glasses. Yep, all of it away.
This does not apply to a school-issued Chromebook, though.
What if my parents need to reach me in case of an emergency?
In case of an emergency, parents can always call the school. All classrooms and the front office are equipped with a phone in case of emergency.
Look, we get it. Being without your phone all day feels weird, but we're all adjusting together.
And remember, it's the law.
We're fortunate also in the sense that, just a reminder, each teacher in the individual classroom, they all have their phones. They have handheld phones, handsets. So again, you know, I think that to be in compliance with the law, I know that there are numerous different approaches that you probably have heard about. I can say with absolute full confidence, having experienced this, particularly as an assistant principal back a long time ago, when the very first generation iPhone hit the market. Now, this was a long time ago. I'm really dating myself. And we took up the practice of no cell phones, put them away. If they were out, they would be confiscated and there would be a $15 fine. we didn't make it through the first semester. And I will say this, that we fought more with parents than we did confiscating phones from students. Now, phones have evolved since the very first iPhone. Not only that, but I would venture to say the volume of these devices has also slightly increased. And so, we're going about this to be in compliance with the new laws, protect the integrity of the instructional time, and going to create this, strike this balance of mutual respect between the teachers and our educators. And our intent is to focus on teaching and learning each day. I think that this policy, and particularly our practice that we will be formalizing, putting into the handbook, and communicating going forward, does just that.
Mrs. Freeman? Actually, I have a few. I don't, I could do one at a time, or, I have a question about the rationale about putting a backpack in a designated area. As long as, I could see during the course of a class period where a student wants to get in their backpack for certain things. It could be a pen, it could be all kinds of things. And as long as the phone is away, not visible, is there a challenge with keeping we talked about the backpack by the desk?
The designated area in the classroom is just purely to be compliant with the law. It's very clear in the statute. It's to be there to be placed in a designated area in the classroom. So, I'm not to say that, I guess we can designate the area at every individual student's desk, but I think that would be very tempting.
I'm just thinking of practicality when a student works and what they need, and then even their own computer. But not their own, but the district's computer and such.
Yeah, so we looked at it from a standpoint of, this is actually the practice that we put in place for testing days. This is exactly what we do. And so maybe a training, just as the students come in, they put their devices, or make sure the devices are turned off, they're in the backpack. Grab your Chromebook, grab your personal device, which I'll be glad to discuss that here momentarily. Whatever supplies, materials you need for the day, and then, if it's one of those things that they've forgotten something, I don't think our classroom teachers are going to prohibit them from being able to go to their backpack to retrieve.
I'm just thinking that maybe during the course of a class period, there might be several trips to the back.
Yeah, it could be. There may be, and I think this is where classroom management is going to be so vital to the whole process, because it hasn't been that long since being a biology teacher. If Johnny decides that he needs to use the restroom 5 times during one class period every day, I don't know. That would raise some suspicion, I think. And so it's that kind of classroom management, and again, and mutual respect. One of the things that came up as we were discussing in cabinet is, while we're fortunate to have technology devices available to students, i.e. Chromebooks and iPads in some cases, we are going to have to really work with teachers on BYOD initiatives, because there are many cases, particularly in art classes, where the Chromebook, as a result of pixelation and applications, they will not be sufficient for the students to be able to successfully complete their academic work. And so we fully anticipate that we're going to maintain a bring your own device, which we have the ability to do. We'll have success in regards to the traffic, or greater success in regards to the traffic on social media platforms and different applications as a result of our network monitoring, which Chris Trejo and his team have been working pretty hard over the course of the summer in preparation for it. And that's not to say it's going to be 100% proof, because iPhones have the ability to create hotspots, as well as there's other various devices that can work off of our network. But for the most part, I think that that's going to be far and few students that are going to be trying to kind of utilize those types of network end arounds. And we're still, even with BYOD, IE students bringing MacBooks, iPads to class, have a pretty good monitoring and control over the utilization, in particular with text messaging and social media correspondence. And I don't know if that answered the question or.
I was just wondering about the
personal
rationale
advisors.
behind that and
Yeah.
convenience for students or issue with classroom
Yeah.
disturbance. Also, variances per school. We are going to require that the schools at least adhere to minimum requirements as to what this policy says.
They'll have to. This is state law, verbatim.
I think there's some other information out there that I've heard from some parents and information that they've gotten at their school. And so I was.
Well, we've had that conversation administratively, and if it's not in compliance with board policy, it's not just this policy. Whatever has been put in place is going to have. It's going to have to. I could make such a joke right now, but it's going to have to be retracted and explained that this is the Northside ISD policy.
And one more. So we have students that go off campus during lunch. If they're in their car, I mean, obviously we're not going to police if a student's in their car. I mean, I can just see this whole piece. I mean, that's going to happen. Kids are going to go sit in their car.
Sure,
That's
absolutely.
That's
By the letter of the law, they're not to be utilizing their personal communication devices while on campus during school hours. Now again, as the leader, instructional leader of the school district, I'm more interested in students coming to school and focusing on learning than I am chasing 100,000 cellular devices all over Bexar County. I don't know if I'm being too vague.
I have two questions. So my first one is just, am I going to assume in place to get feedback from the people that are going to have to enforce this? Because I wanted, is there like a 6 months feedback? Like just to kind of get a sense of like, because, we're going to put this policy in place, but in practice, that might be a little different. And so is there some ways that we can,
Yeah, I'm always open to feedback, and we can probably survey, but I don't know what feedback we're going to receive because this policy is state law.
Yeah.
And while I appreciate that some teachers, educators may not like it, it's law.
I think too, because it is very vague, and so I feel like different schools are implementing in different ways.
Yeah.
And so the unfortunate is legislators, they left it really vague. Like, yes, there are specific things that are like, this has to be done, but I feel like it's vague because so many different schools are implementing different ways. So
Yeah, and I think that's where we're going to work to clean up.
Okay.
Because that vagueness with this particular law, it's, in my opinion, there's a lot of vagueness with a lot of pieces of legislation that have been passed pertaining to education. 1481 is not one of them. It, to me, is very clear. It is not, they are not to be used during the course of the school day, either prohibition or powered off, turned off, placed in a designated area. And then there are consequences associated if students are in violation. So we can collect feedback. I don't know how it's going to steer.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree. I think it's can we see if there is something that, I feel like with a district so big, we're talking about 133 schools, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of teachers. I mean, what a great way to kind of get some feedback from them, because we never know, like, there might be someone out there that has a great idea. So it's just, can there be a mechanism in place? Yes, knowing that, like, I mean, I feel like teachers understand, like, this is what's in place, this is what has to happen, but is there a way that, I mean, and it could just be us bringing this up, like, hey, can we bring this up in 6 months to be like, hey, how are things going?
And I think that's part of, as the policy outlined, a report to be delivered. This is how, you know, we're implementing, and here are the number of infractions.
Okay.
I think that is the intent.
Yeah.
You know, I just, to me, the other option to be in compliance with this particular law is to prohibit. They don't come to school. That's just really it.
Oh, I had two, sorry. And then my second one is, you know, because our policy is the way it's set up, like, are there going to be, and it's kind of like piggybacking off of what you were saying, is there going to be like clear instructions on consequences? Because I feel like many times, like in conversations with parents, you know, I feel like sometimes the frustration and what administrators will have to deal with is if there's not these clear rules on consequences, or rule, you know, this student was treated this way, but then my student was treated differently, like, what is there going to be set consequences on for admin to be able to follow, or is that going to be each individual admin will decide? It's a question, obviously it's not something that it's just, I think that kind of adds to the dynamic of the parent, because if there aren't these clear consequences that students know of and that parents are aware of, and there is this kind of flexibility, then that's what I feel angers individuals more than anything else, because then they feel like they're not being treated the same, or their instance is different than someone else's. It's a little easier when I'm talking to individuals where I'm like, but it's listed right here, like this is why it happened, versus like, well, it depends, or well, this instance was more severe than maybe another instance.
So this is not an anomaly. I compare this. Now, you probably don't like to hear that, but we have a dress code. Our expectation is for students to be in compliance with the dress code. And so I can't promise that there's not going to be some degree of inconsistencies with the implementation. What I can say is that the law and the policy before you will dictate us outlining consequences through, like I say, our code of conduct and our student handbooks. What will those consequences look like? Well, they will mirror image, like I say, our spectrum of disciplinary consequences for insubordination. I mean, the directive is, this is the directive. During the course of the school day, cell phones, telecommunication devices will not be used. And so that's, in essence, not following a directive. There will be graduated consequences as a result of insubordination. That's what it will mirror in essence. And again, we're not trying to be overly punitive. Rather, let's focus on learning.
There is just to follow up with you as a prior school administrator, there's the code of conduct, and then each school has their escalating consequences, which is also part of the code of conduct. So the way that that child's consequence is given is based on their history.
Yeah, and that's a good point.
So you have a first, second, third offender, that's gonna look different, and so I need parents to understand that it's based on your students, your own students' individual record, if you will, because if I get them twice in my office for the same offense, now we're at a different level. It's going to escalate to level 2. And they know, the students know, oh, I know this is my level 3, I'm going to get ISS. They already know their consequence, and if that's been very clear, especially if they've been with us in the office before. So if you're not sure what those escalating consequences are as a parent in a household that maybe thinks this might be an issue in your household, then you need to ask your school leaders, what are the escalating consequences for this?
And that's a great point. It will be graduated depending on disciplinary history. there's also this aspect that, in some cases, campuses implement after-school detention. Some cases, campuses implement in-school detention, lunch detention, Saturday schools. And so, again, we're not going to prescribe to the extent of every campus, 132 plus, every campus must, do a Saturday school for the second cell phone infraction. It's a rule. That's really what this boils down to. Yes, it's law, but it's going to be one of our rules, i.e. expectations. And that consistency, it absolutely needs to be consistent, particularly through the implementation across the board. And that was one of the things that we had a pretty extensive conversation with our cabinet in regards to, should it look different at the elementary level, at the middle school level, at the high school level? But when you really, again, look at the legislation, that's not what the legislation prescribes. And so let's make it consistent across the board.
Ms. Rebecca?
I agree. Coming from education, it's a policy that it's not going to be easy implementing. It's going to be a little tough, but it's something like what Dr. Kraft said about being consistent, having clear guidelines, making sure that we're communicating with families and with students very clearly, and I think also too, again, being consistent at all levels, and just a couple of questions that I have. I agree with it because I think the whole focus, I want to make sure that we remember is it's about supporting teachers and protecting that learning environment. And we have the best teachers in Texas, and we need to be able to support them and have high quality instruction bell to bell and without any distraction. So we owe that to our teachers. So I think implementing this, I want to reiterate why it was put in place. It's to help our students for their success. A couple of questions I have is, will students be able to use phones during the passing periods?
Yeah, no.
During lunchtime?
Lunch and passing periods are inclusive of the school day. And that was a specific question, Ms. Apollo, thank you for asking, that I reached out to legal, and it's very clear. Passing periods, lunch periods, those are considered during the instructional day.
And I think another concern I have is, again, just coming from education, is making sure that making sure that we're managing that classroom management and how with the teachers too, following it. Like not having some teachers following it to the T and then others being lax, just making sure that we have something in place to make sure that we're monitoring that, so we can again be consistent with that. But I think this is a great opportunity for Northside, to lead the way with this policy and just create a clear pathway to protect the learning environment. And it's going to be messy and it's going to be hard, but it's owed for our teachers and for our students. And I think we need to just also stay focused on that. And we do have a system in place. I know every classroom has a telephone. If a student needs to if there was an emergency, they can reach the office. There's an intercom system, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, where you can,
the office must be able to contact the teacher, please pick up the phone, that communication that you receive. So, yeah, I think the communication aspect and the ability to literacy, it just doesn't concern me as much. And I will say this too, that I think that the initial implementation, we may have some challenges, but all in all, I really believe in our students, and I believe that if our communication as to the rationale and the importance of why cell phones need to be turned off, not to take away personal devices for true schoolwork, academia, or district issued Chromebooks. I think if that is communicated with the emphasis on are in and around, we are concerned about you and your future and your ability to learn during this particular class period, I think that they'll be pretty receptive. And we've got a few of our ambassadors here that, we've had the ability to engage in conversations with. I believe in our students.
And then just one more comment, and I just want to make it clear, and I just want to make sure that I don't want to see any employees being held accountable for someone's cell phone because it got lost or it got stolen, because it shouldn't even be bought in the first place. I want to make sure that our teachers are protected.
As do I.
Dr. Hart, excuse me. I think one of the messy parts will be, because we've had surrounding districts share their version of this before. I mean, I know it took time for us to get to this place tonight because we were waiting on the state, but I know a couple have already announced and they are gonna let them do it during passing period and at lunch and before, there may be a couple other times. So we're gonna have to do some explaining, but I do know there's been so many districts in Texas that started doing this last year and had really, really good results. It was real messy and bumpy at the beginning. They had very specified, going back to some of the conversation earlier, levels of disciplinary measures that were spelled out. There's a level of specificity, and I think just in talking to folks the past week, there's just maybe some confusion or opportunities for clarification around that level of specificity. Girls wanting to have purses that don't carry backpacks. Is it gonna be backpacks, gonna be purses? Karen mentioned something about chairs. Some of our classrooms, when they took out the lockers, the classroom size didn't increase, so where are these backpacks going to go? Something like that, I think will help us get through the messiness. I also, and I believe in our teachers and kids too, but I also have issues when, you can't drink Coke in class, but then the teacher is drinking Coke. You can't use your phone. Is the teacher going to be allowed to use a phone? Are they going to be walking down the halls on their phones? That part, I'm having a really hard time. I'm struggling with that. As an educator who carries her phone with her everywhere you go, we have other responsibilities. I know I can explain it. Like, honestly, my mom did turn 90 today, and so she calls all the time. I have to be ready, but I can't make excuses either. I would never drink a Diet Coke in front of my class if they couldn't drink a Diet Coke. This is a little different. So what has been the talk about teacher use was one question, and then what's the process for all services happening tonight?
Yeah, so I think that the reason that there's, some ambiguity in regards to consequences and is simply because we're proposing policy, and so we haven't put in place, here are very specific procedures, protocol, much less consequences, because we'd be getting ahead of the passage of this policy. So we're going to encapsulate our expectations through, like I say, our administrative regulations, working on that consistency, and then also ensuring that parents are aware of what our expectations are through the student code of conduct, like I say, student handbooks. In regards to our classroom teachers and their use of cell phones, in the event that there are emergencies, because the law doesn't clearly identify or articulate no cell phone usage for staff members. And I think that before we paint ourselves into a corner, there may be in some instances where a teacher needs to use a cell phone, hopefully not for a safety situation, but some other situation that's really, really important. Now, that being said, if it's 30 minutes out of every class period, every instructional day, that's going to be an administrative matter to work with. Generally speaking, as I've again, discussed at convocation, and in fact, even I think demonstrated, if I'm not mistaken, I know it was last week, but you know, our expectation is if we're gonna ask the students to place cell phones in backpacks and put them away, it's probably so should adults. You know, in regards to other districts, I can't really comment, I can't speak to. I can tell you this, that in my conversations with legislative offices, with our legal review and policy, I can say this with full confidence. The legislative intent is not to allow passing periods and lunches for students to be able to utilize telecommunication devices. Now, beyond that, I don't know. That's coming straight from the horse's mouth. So, I don't know.
Yeah, the only comment I had was something that one of the colleagues had said about everybody being on the same page. We have 131 campuses. We don't want one campus. I have 2 granddaughters in 6 schools. You know, why does Salsa's listen to it and not this? We want to kind of have something that's, this is what it is. No, we say give them the option of do whatever they want to do. You want to do this kind of like, if it's backpacks in this corner, at every school, not just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Giving them options of every school, you know what I mean? Because you gotta come back and say, why does that school get from there and not this one?
Yeah, and I think that the question also, to your point, Mr. Salcedo, but also Dr. Carl, that we don't have space in our classroom to implement. Well, what have we done when we test 9 or 10 times out of the year? So how we made it work.
I noticed the new furniture that was placed in all the schools this year, because of their hooks.
That may be the designated area, maybe, hooks or cubby, what do they call them, cubby holes? I think we still have cubby holes. We still have cubbies?
Cubbies.
Cubbies still exist? Okay.
Elementaries.
Thank you, okay.
So I see this like very important to everybody's point, like we really have to be compliant, right? We have no choice in this. We didn't create this, we're just adhering to it. We have a code of conduct in place. We want to be consistent. Should there be inconsistency, I'm sure we're gonna hear of it, and that's the administrator's job to oversee that, or the campus oversight for teachers, and then for students. And then I'm sure if there's any concern that we're gonna get word of that. And so if you have a problem with this, how can you need to speak to your legislature?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know, other than just the prohibition, any little tweak, if we buy $10 million of pouches, we're still doing the same thing. The only difference will be students will be turning in their iPhone version 1 and maintaining or keeping their version 17 or 18, whatever the latest and greatest is. That's been proven already. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what iteration we would adopt other than be in compliance with the legislation. Just they don't come to school, and then I'll argue we'll be fighting a whole different battle every day.
I'd just like to share a quick comment from my granddaughter who came home upset yesterday. She said she felt like she was in prison during lunch. An example was saying that everyone was quiet because they couldn't pull out their cell phone. They had 2 police officers basically just roaming in between looking for somebody who had their cell phone. Whereas last year she compared it that they were just standing at the door, not moving around. Yesterday, the first day of school, they were actually just walking around, and she felt like she was an inmate or something like that. That's how she described it. So,
yeah, I think that's important feedback as well. That's not the environment that we want to unintentionally, definitely not intentionally, create. One of the stories that was captured from yesterday was actually students are sitting down and playing board games at lunch and actually having interactions with one another. So I think that those are, when we talk about the learning environment, I think that that's a part of the evolution as to what does this now look like. It's also, in my opinion, kind of an indication of just how accustomed our youth, but probably adults as well, have gotten so used to having this device right in front of their face every free moment they have. And I think this is actually going to end up being a real positive for the entire community once it's all said and done. If I think we do it right and take the correct approach.
The students are allowed to speak to each other during lunch, but they're gonna have to be social experiences now and learn how to talk to each other again.
Personal communication.
So that's an opportunity.
It's coming back.
Coloring books, crayons, and for those that don't want to socialize, bring a book. Maybe we'll get more visits to the library. I don't know. I think this could be a moment of rediscovery. Maybe if we take my phone away, I don't know. I'm going to start drawing. I don't know.
Well, and again, I don't think the legislative intent is to be overly punitive. I don't think that's it at all. I think that the intent, and again, having been on the very onset of the conversations, has always been, let's get the students back focused on learning and teachers teaching and not having to police social media and all the other stuff that has been accompanied with the overutilization and just time domination of these devices.
This actually is asking for, you have another comment? I have another comment.
That's first reading, but I actually place it on your
Action.
for consideration because this will expedite our ability to go ahead and put in place, like I say, procedures, protocol through administrative regulations, as well as our communication efforts. And it's one that I know we've been discussing, even though not formally presented in a policy format,
Okay.
several weeks now.
Any actions from the board?
I motion to adopt the proposed revision of the communication devices.
Okay.
Northside
Any
ISD.
seconds? Sorry, Dr. Hassel,
Dr. Duran, before we go forward with the vote.
any other discussion?
Thank you.
Mrs. Freeman?
Dr. Kraft, looking at the bill itself, it does require, it says the policy must establish disciplinary measures to be imposed for violation. Now, I understand that you've referenced student code of conduct. We're taking a strict look at this bill. Do we need to go ahead and put something like, reference our student code of conduct or reference something in this policy?
No, this policy was actually drafted straight from TASB Legal. So we can revise it, but that's not what their recommendation is.
I'm just looking at the bill though. The bill says the policy must. And then regarding TASB Legal, we still haven't seen the legal policy, which it's unusual for us to adopt local policy without actually seeing the legal. I understand why we need to do it because we're starting the school day. I just want us to pay attention to that. Perhaps we can always change the local policy.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's in here, so I guess I question why we're not.
I think that, again, we can be as prescriptive as we would like to be. I think that whatever we prescribe is likely going to change.
I agree. I would agree.
So I think that the infractions can be absolutely covered with our student code of conduct. And again, it's really, in my assessment, insubordination, not following the directive. You're here. Consequences as a result.
So, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion is passed to adopt the personal communication devices.
Thank you. Like I said, we'll start communication, next steps immediately. Because I know there's still a lot of questions.
Bill has some grant funding too also, right, with TA?
Yeah, that was just announced last week with TA. We'll look at if we need devices for, like I say, collection outside of backpacks or purses or bags. We can definitely look to apply for some of that funding. I want to say it's about $10 million across the state.
One question about the funding. I guess the schools are also looking at if there is a classroom like in a room that doesn't have a phone, that every room will have a phone. You said that
I believe every classroom used for instruction has a handset.
Classroom has a phone?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
That,
133 buildings, every classroom where kids are being instructed has a phone.
absolutely,
And
and they
there's
all
not-
dial, they all dial 911 as well. They all can.
And they all dial 911. Hopefully never, but
Never,
thanks.
yes.
Good. I feel better. Good.
Okay, the next two policies, again, this is just from a timing standpoint. We've discussed these as well. These are interrelated. This pertains, FD pertains to students not enrolled. If you recall, districts, school boards were required to, in essence, designate through policy whether or not they would allow private school or homeschool students eligibility if they were not enrolled in curricular, extracurricular activities. As we discussed in our conversations with UIL, this policy, you'll see the change on page 2 of 3, outlines student not enrolled or enrolled in a private school, including homeschool, shall not be eligible for concurrent enrollment in the district nor participation in curricular, extracurricular activities. So again, pretty straightforward. And then the second policy associated is FM, and that